Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
What kind of response did you get when you went public? Did you get harassed? Did the police department come down on you?
It was amazing. The way I describe it and have described it for many years is it rained marijuana on our house.
Wow.
The article that I read about finding it on the doorstep and I laughed was totally true. We found it in brown paper bags on our doorstep. We got it through the mail, postage paid. We also got it in the mailbox. We live in a rural area and we have a rural mailbox. Found it in the mailbox, found it on the back porch, and had many people deliver it to us.
Wow. Okay, and we'll be right back after this. We're talking with May Nutt today. And May, now what I understand is that you began a crusade in your state to re-legalize hemp for medical purposes that brought forth on October 10th, 1979, a history-making policy within your state. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
Could
That's
you
true.
share that?
We, when we decided to go public, we decided that we needed to be legal. And so we contacted the legislature to see if there was a possibility that Michigan could do this, and found that someone else had been there before us, and it was in the process. So we joined the process. Keith went with us in early October. And then again, late in October, he was very ill, and we went without him. And it went 100 to nothing in the Senate, and I've forgotten what the count was in the House. But yes, indeed, it did go. And
now, does that mean that in Michigan, if the people can start using it for
no,
medical purposes?
Doesn't mean that. Once the bill is passed, then it has to be signed.
Okay.
And it was signed on October 22nd, 1979, by the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan, and that was the day our son died. So, I have to get my breath. He never received legal marijuana. And then after that, it was over a year before the state received the marijuana. The federal government stands in your way, and they're not cooperative. But Michigan and 33 other states did pass marijuana laws, and indeed the area we live in received the marijuana. In fact, I received it personally from the state. And the doctor that took care of Keith had encouraged me to work on the legality of it, and he got a license. And as time went on, he said to me, May, I can't do this anymore. And I was hurt. And
now, from what I understand, too, not only was the government slow in getting the hemp, the marijuana into the state, but during this time while it was coming in, you were also getting hemp to other patients and other people within the
not
community.
after it got legal.
Okay.
Not after it got legal. Before it got legal. When Keith died, we had a great deal of marijuana.
Okay.
And I knew what it would do, and I would not throw it away.
Okay.
And I did not play games about it. And yes, then the doctor said to me, he would send me patients, I used to call them our patients, and say, you know, if someone was saying, doctor, I'm going to quit, dying can't be worse, and he would send them to me. And
well, now, didn't you feel like you were breaking a law? Now, I understand that people of your generation have an ingrained thought when it comes to hemp, to marijuana.
brainwashing, it's called.
Yeah. That because it's illegal, it shouldn't even be discussed, let alone considered. And now yet you're...
Okay, I'm in a different category. Yes, it's illegal, and I frowned on my children using it. But we're talking about life and death. We're talking about people. It's not even a quality of life, which is important, but it's life and death. And there are many people who will die, and I know of several who have survived because they were able to use marijuana. A dad told me just this year, that his son had cancer, and he refused to take the treatment. And so one of his buddies got him stoned, so he was so happy he really didn't care what he was doing, unaware that it could help the nausea. And so he continued his treatment, and the young man is alive and well today.
Now, you shared with me that there was a Vietnam vet who was paralyzed.
I talked to him this year.
And could you tell that?
Okay, he's a representative of disabled veterans in Southern Illinois. And he told me he had several vertebrae damaged during the war, and he did some rehab in a hospital in Colorado. And before he left, his physician took him aside and said, "I do not want you to take the drugs that the Veterans Organization or the hospital is going to prescribe for you." He said, "I want you to take marijuana, use marijuana, smoke it." And the young man, he said he was incontinent with his bladder and his bowels and was paralyzed. He said in 5 years he got so he could walk 5 miles.
Wow.
He could also take a few steps without a walker, and that his incontinence was under control.
Now, I understand that AIDS sufferers, people who are dealing with that disease, can find relief with
Absolutely.
with hemp.
There's an organization called MARS, Marijuana AIDS Research Service, and it's to help them apply for legal marijuana. It's not going, well, it's going better than others have, but it's very slow. There's so many of them, and the government is saying they don't have the resources.
And you commented that people with epilepsy.
Epilepsy. I did a national television thing a few months ago, and I received many phone calls from people with various illnesses. And one of my recent one was a young woman with epilepsy, and she was from New York State, couldn't drive because of the seizures, and had tried the prescribed drugs, and eventually somehow someone talked her into smoking marijuana. And she was seizure-free for 2.5 years. And if I remember right, she said 2 years in her state and she could get her driver's license back. So she was back driving.
Now, when this is used for medicinal purposes, people think that you should, is that just smoking it? You just go into the hospital room and say, "Okay, doctor, I want a joint or two," and you have your friends bringing it in off the street and fire it up. Is that the only way that it can be used?
No.
Is that the best way?
It's the fastest way.
Okay.
But for someone, a cancer patient, I've talked to many, and they have cancer because they smoke tobacco, and they simply cannot tolerate any other smoke in their lungs. So we can make brownies. We can make suppositories by making the butter and putting them in a capsule. And the nurses told me for children, poke holes in the capsule so that you don't have to wait quite so long for the capsule to dissolve before the ingredients get in the bloodstream. And also tea. And I'm thinking that tea, for people my age, we could drink an herbal tea without a blink of an eye.
Okay.
And I was told this summer by a man who was dying of cancer that the pain, the nausea, and the appetite, and that the tea got into his system in like 5 minutes. Now some of the other things, the brownies and the suppositories, of course the suppositories are wonderful because you don't throw them back up again.
That's true.
And the digested foods, brownies and such.
Now, you said children. Now,
Yes.
realizing that hemp is an illegal substance for Americans to use, it's kind of unusual to hear someone encourage that we give this to children.
If
now.
you have a child dying and they are giving you no hope whatsoever, and this is hope, I have no problem with that at all.
Do you know of any children that have benefited from this?
I know of one child, to my knowledge, and this was about 10 years ago, and the child was so emaciated, and there was simply no other place in his body to poke a needle, and they had to stop treatment. And to stimulate his appetite, they made him brownies and teas, and he was able to go back and continue his treatment, and to the best of my knowledge, the child is alive and well today.
Wow, very interesting. To this.
We thought we were. I distributed what we had, and then when it became legal, I no longer, well, I didn't have any more, and I didn't try to get any more, but it was legal. And so I still worked with the doctor, but I didn't work directly with patients using the marijuana. But eventually he stopped using it, and I was angry and hurt. And he said to me, May, I cannot spend more time doing paperwork than I do taking care of patients, and I have to discontinue using it. And we had 34 states where it was legal, and now every doctor in every state, not all of them received it, but the bills are dormant because the federal government made it so difficult and horrendous for the doctors to use it.
You know, what I understand too of people who have glaucoma and are applying for
Right.
The hemp for their medical
Absolutely.
purposes. From what I understand, the paperwork takes anywhere from a year to 2 years.
Yeah,
Just-
it's horrendous. And the Mars project is attempting to, they have cut it down until a doctor can do it in about 15 minutes.
Now, from what I understand, you also testified before the DEA in 1988.
I did indeed.
And now, what came from that, and who did you speak with when you were
Oh, I testified in front of a Judge Francis Young, very intelligent man. And the feeling of the people that I was working with, normal, and he was going to brush it off.
there? Okay.
We were going to finish our testimony, and 15 minutes later he was going to say, forget it. He didn't do that. He agonized over this for a long time. And he was only to make a recommendation to the head of DEA. He couldn't make the decision. And he recommended wholeheartedly. And he had heard people all over the United States from all different kinds of illnesses, and said, in effect, for God's sakes, help these people.
And what kind of response did he receive?
The head of DEA, in effect, said, drop dead.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're stupid.
Okay. Now, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I was wondering, you commented that people of an older generation than what I am have a problem at times being able to restructure their thinking on this plant. What do you have to say to them?
Okay, we were told, and I came from an era that if my government told me, go out and stand in the middle of the traffic, I'd probably do it, because they would never tell me anything that was harmful. And it has taken me a long time to realize this is no longer true. Maybe it never was, but I thought it was. And so therefore, it's difficult. You just, it's like a religion. You may go away from the religion that you were brought up as a child, but it's always there. And I'm not sure that I would ever be able to smoke a marijuana cigarette.
Okay, now you've talked about Mars, and there's probably a variety of people who are watching this show who'd like to have the chance to find out more about your organization, or the organization, Mars. Address and phone number, please.
I don't have it. It's
right.
through ACT, Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics, and they're based here in Washington, D.C. I do not have an address or a telephone number, but I'm sure that through Normal, High Times has an ad in it. There are many places that they can contact them.
Any final comment to our audience?
Oh, go with your gut feeling. If you think you're right, go for it.
Thank you very much.
Here's a song my dad wrote called Bloody Mary Morning. it's a Bloody Mary morning. Baby left me without warning sometime in the night. So I'm flying down to Houston before getting her the nature of my flight. As we taxied down the runway with the smog and haze reminding me of how I feel. Just a country boy who's learning that the pitfalls of the city are extremely real. All the nightlife and the parties, temptation and deceit, the order of the day. Well, it's a Bloody Mary morning, 'cause I'm leaving baby somewhere in L.A. Well, it's a Bloody Mary morning. Baby left me without warning sometime in the night. So I'm flying down to Houston before getting her the nature of my flight. As we taxied down the runway with the smog and haze reminding me of how I feel. Just a country boy who's learning that the pitfalls of the city are extremely real. All the nightlife and the parties, temptation and deceit, the order of the day. Well, it's a Bloody Mary morning, 'cause I'm leaving baby somewhere in L.A. Well, it's a Bloody Mary morning. Baby left me without warning sometime in the night. So I'm flying down to Houston before getting her the nature of my flight. So I'm flying down to Houston before getting her the nature of my flight.
You know, I mean, I want to throw this out there about hemp, what's called hemp. See, we're after the medical marijuana, and we all talk about that, and recreational marijuana, and all the marijuana aspect of it, but the hemp aspect. Hemp is earth medicine. Hemp will make fresh oxygen for a sky that is being suffocated. Hemp Hemp will feed us, clothe us. We know all the stuff. Hemp will do it, but not enough attention is being paid to hemp. And we need to pay more attention to hemp and recognize it. I mean, otherwise, it's more, there's more to life than let's go get the medicine that just helps us. Let's get the medicine that will help the earth and the planet too, and us. So let's think about that. Hemp. Not enough attention being paid to hemp. The word gets said a lot, but not enough attention being paid to hemp. No offense.
Wow, look at this. It's a marijuana patch. Growing wild. Oh, who do we have in the marijuana patch but Jack Harrer and Ed Adair?
Well, hi, guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour, guys?
We're on the hemp tour. Yeah.
We've got hemp. Growing wild. Look at this, folks. Look at this. This is hemp. This is hemp. None of this is female, though. This is all male. Look at this. Look at the seeds.
It's sitting there. This is organic matter.
I can't look at it even?
Oh, yeah, really. Can't look at it.
This is hemp land. We're going into hemp. Going into the hemp. Yes. We're inside of the hemp now. This is hemp. We're inside hemp, about 10 or 12 feet. See, look. See? This is the sky. Look at this great background. This is natural wild hemp.
You think you're going to succeed?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you? Nobody can beat the truth. Can anybody beat the truth?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely
No
not.
way, man.
This man and I have been out there telling the truth, and nobody's ever said we're wrong. They keep arresting us 33 times. They have beaten us in jails. They have done physical things to me. I'm not going to describe on this air, but there's nothing that can beat a fact. And and I don't care how popular a president thinks he is. When people realize that he's killed off a planet and he's killed off the knowledge of a planet, and he's allowed millions of people to die prematurely and in pain and in misery, and has ruined the quality of life that can be gotten with a good, simple medicine that never killed anybody except at the hands of bad public policy and police carrying out bad public policy with a vengeance.
One of those is a hempcrete ball. So what you have here is the inner core portion of the stalk, which is similar to some of what we have here in this bag, the little woody portions that you see in here. And then we mix this with a lime binder and water, and this becomes a non-structural component of the wall insulation. Or you can compress them into blocks to have structural components of the wall. It's breathable, resistant to mold, resistant to fire, and you can learn more about that at hemp-technologies.com.
And so that's carbon negative.
This is a carbon negative, is what the tests have shown for our colleagues in the UK. Now, this is one of the reasons why we want to be cultivating industrial hemp in this country, is it so that we can start decorticating those stalks to create that hurd that will need to go into this building application. And not only can you use this hurd in a hempcrete, but you can also use it in a hemp block. So here's a little bitty piece of pressed board. And this also is using the hemp hurd and then press. This is made in Canada. Nice, just a little bitty pressed block there. Keep all this organized.
I'll try to put it back in
and
the
then
container.
right here we have hemp insulation. So this is a pink insulation replacement, and you can get this in various sizes, and of course it's cut to be 15 or 16 inches depending on what you need. It can come with or without a fire retardant depending on your needs and building codes. So here we have, I think these are both made in like a needle punch machine. It's a non-woven matting. This is a very thin piece, so you could use this as what is essentially made into this briefcase right here is this type of matting that is then molded and infused. You could also use this as something to go underneath countertops or as perhaps soil retention. And last but not least, what we have here is the bast fiber on the inside. So this is the outside of the stalk, and these are the long bast fibers that you would use to make those non-woven mattings and to make the hemp insulation.
So I said last, but there's one more item here. You have hemp bast fiber.
Yep, hemp
Here's
bast
the hemp
fiber.
herd fiber. You want to tell our audience the difference between the two?
Yeah, so this is the little woody core on the inside. This is the hemp herd. You can see this in all cannabis plants. They all have the long bast fiber on the outside. And that bast fiber on the outside is what our colleagues like in China are using to make the amazing textiles, such as what I have on right now. This is Hemporium from South Africa. And then the inner core here is the woody portion. But you could also use this in type of applications such as gasification to create heat in greenhouses and in homes. So this is a very or animal bedding. Amazing for animal bedding. We just cleaned out our chicken coop and we had the top part with straw and underneath we had the hemp herd. And so surprising in Canada at our -30 weather how the hemp herd was still really light and fluffy and it was able to remove the straw quite quickly.
Well, thank you.
As long as people are just being locked up for cannabis, then we've got to change those laws and we've got to restore hemp for energy, folks. That's the real key here. The whole reason marijuana was prohibited was to stop this, to stop hemp fuel being used. Now this is hemp seed oil with a piece of hemp twine here. This is next week's wick right here. And you can burn this in any diesel engine with no conversion to the engine today. You can pour that right into your diesel engine and turn the key and drive. And that's the reason it was made illegal. It's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist, ruling class that have brought us hemp and cannabis prohibition.
Industrial use, you know, I don't see there any harm, and there's a lot of good uses for it. You know, people fight it because of the, well, from the blackballing of it through William Randall Person's paper industry. I guess that's where it first started, but I don't mind the industrial use. I mean, it makes rope, fine clothing, fine paper, whatever.
Anything you can make out of hydrocarbon, you can make out of a carbohydrate. There's no reason to be burning fossil fuels when we don't have to.
If you can grow hemp properly, it is a material that contributes to sustainable agriculture because the tonnage of carbon removed from the air in the form of carbon dioxide is high relative to the amount of carbon removed from the air by other plants, like trees.
This is a unmodified 1983 Mercedes-Benz turbo diesel, and the only thing that we've done differently is put lots of wonderful stickers on the car and put hemp biodiesel fuel in the tank. That's it. No modifications.
Also, Mercedes-Benz right now has a Model 420 M Series, believe it or not, that's got hemp composite plastic dashboards and door paneling. And they're discovering that it biodegrades when it breaks upon impact. It doesn't break sharply, so it's less likely to injure a person.
And we've we've been on the road for 6 weeks now. Got 6,000 miles on the car. That's totally on hemp. And we've got another 6 weeks to go roughly before we end our tour in DC.
There's a lot of problems that have to be solved, and we can solve a number of it. Its fiber strength is up on the order of 5,000 psi. So you get a fiber strength that's equivalent to some of the toughest, strongest woods. When you process hemp fiber using a hydrogen peroxide process, you can control the pollution more effectively than using chlorine processing, which is used for paper. The hemp that comes out of this process can be made into oriented strand board. Oriented strand board is the largest growing sector of the materials industry for construction. Oriented strand board can be made with hemp fiber having a modulus of 6,000 psi, about twice the strength of ordinary particle board. This makes hemp fiber bonded with its own natural binders, a suitable material for underlayment, sheathing, and roofing substrate in houses and housing construction.
This is a circa 1920 bottle from Eli Lilly, Cannabis. And then right next to it, we have an 1890 bottle. This is actually still full. And this is Lipoese Balsam for coughs. It's a cough medicine. This box is in like 5 different languages, and it comes with this insert that's in 9 more. So this was a very useful medicine. Here's another one from 1910, specific standard medicines out of Illinois, the Lloyd brothers. They sold many of these medicines. This is also a partially full bottle. And this is an unopened box. It still has the full bottle still inside. Right next to it, this bottle was dug up. This is a embossed bottle that says, as you can see, Dr. D.H. James's Cannabis Indica. So this was another medicine. This is a combination medicine. It's cannabis with, what else has it got? Lecithin and lime and iron. It has a little bit of strychnine in it too. I don't know why they put that in there, but it's for nervous prostration, nervous exhaustion, nervous disability, nervous excitement, hysteria, and all depressed conditions of the nervous system. You can read that right on there. So it was a widely used medicine. But most importantly, we're still burning our hemp flame of freedom. This is hemp seed oil burning a wick of hemp fiber. And this is why marijuana was made illegal, folks, right here. It's all about money and power and energy. They created the whole marijuana myth to protect the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, crony, corporate, elite, ruling class and their
Sons
wealth.
of bitches.
Yeah, those guys too.
There you go.
And so here it is. The hemp flame of freedom continues to burn brightly here on Cannabis Common Sense.
Industrial hemp is a strategic food and resource for fiber, which you can make clothing, canvas, paper, and also that cellulose can be used to make the new substance in 1936 that the DuPonts wanted it to just be made out of coal or out of oil. You can use the same byproduct, you can use the same product of cellulose in the stalk of the sensimilla. In other words, we could be growing medical marijuana and take the stalk of it and make plastic to build homes for Hawaiians at very inexpensive rates. Or we could build an automobile. I could show you a picture real quickly here on page 50 of a car that Henry Ford made out of cannabis. I know it's hard for people to believe it, but here's a car made out of cannabis that not only did Henry Ford want the car to be made out of plastic made from hemp, but he wanted it to be run. In other words, the fuel. There was a process where you could renewably take plants, especially hemp, and after you take the seeds off for the food, to feed starving people or to feed animals or to press that oil into the lubricating lubricants for the grease and the oil in the car. So literally we can use plants, natural resources given to us by God, our Creator, to solve problems here in Maui. Now, the National Review, which is the publication of the conservative right, and William F. Buckley, who is a scholar, has come out recently. This is the second front page in a year where he said, yeah, it's Powell, people. The war on drugs, is the war on drugs really lost? And he gives 17 scholarly points in this magazine where he feels that the way to go is harm reduction and immediate relaxation of laws against cannabis for even recreational use.
Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to life. Yes to living. Yes to caring. Yes to giving. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to being. Yes to seeing. Yes to yeses. Give us this day our daily yeses. chaos, confusions. Confusions, chaos. Desperations, despairs. Despairs, desperations. Behavior, reaction. Reactions, behavior. Manipulated minds. Minds manipulated. Fearful thinking. Thinking fearful. Inside, outside, outside, inside. Altering thought. Thought altering. Perceptions diseasing. Diseasing perceptions. Forgetting medicine. Medicine forgetting. Coherence. Coherency, coherent. Peace and love. Love and peace. Realities created. Created realities. Whatever sees whatever we do. Do we? Give us this day our daily yes. Yes to yeses. Yes to seeing. Yes to being. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to giving. Yes to caring. Yes to living. Yes to life. Yes to yes. Give us this day our daily yes.
Speaker. For more than 70 years, our government has followed the most spectacular failure in policy since the disastrous 13-year experiment with the prohibition of alcohol. 43 years ago, the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse released a report finding that the federal ban on marijuana is unjustified and inappropriate. Yet, for most of that time, federal policy has been frozen in amber. Countless lives have been ruined for the use of a substance that a majority of Americans now think should be legal. Untold billions of dollars have been spent on a failed effort at prohibition, and still 25 million adults use it every month. Despite a finding in federal law that marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance with no therapeutic value, 213 million Americans live in 34 states and the District of Columbia where medical marijuana is recognized and legal in some form, and over 1 million people use it as medicine. In 1996, voters in California marked a significant change in course when they legalized medical marijuana with a vote of the people, and almost 36 states have followed. In the fall of 2012, voters in the state of Washington and Colorado approved adult use of marijuana. And it should be noted the sky didn't fall, big cracks didn't appear in the earth, and problems with marijuana didn't get worse. In some instances, they became more manageable. For the federal government, the tide continues to turn. Last session of Congress had 6 successful votes on the floor of the House to rationalize our foolish policies, including reining in federal enforcement and opening opportunities for legal industrial hemp cultivation. Last fall, voters in my state of Oregon, looking at the evidence and experience, like in Colorado, approved adult use by an even larger margin than previous state. The marijuana reform train has left the station. It's time for the federal government to redouble its efforts at developing policies that work. Congressman Jared Polis and I will reintroduce this week our legislation to establish a federal framework to end the failed federal prohibition. It will pave the way for states to chart their own course, to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana according to what individual states want to do, just like they do with alcohol. We will save tens of billions of dollars in failed enforcement, incarceration, and lost revenues. We will choke off a profit center for drug cartels that have been enriched by our failed policies. And we will make it easier to enforce laws to keep marijuana out of the hands of our children and have money for government services rather than waste money on failed policy, arresting people for something that a majority of Americans now think should be legal. For those of us who've worked in this field for years, it's an exciting time. My legislation will deal with the taxation of marijuana, and we look forward to refining it to be able to have the tax at a proper level to support government services, but also reasonable enough to choke off black market supply. It's time for us to enter a new era of marijuana policy for research, protecting our children, for economic development, and individual liberties. I strongly urge my colleagues to examine the legislation that we've advanced and be part of this long overdue effort at reform.
Flatlands, they just went on and on. Before I ever got to the other side, I started missing home. Started missing home. People, they weren't as friendly. They'd all been traumatized by the rush of this here civilization. They all were trapped inside. So they went and they made a war so they could drive around a big old car. And they drive it all up in circles, but they never get that far. And they prey upon each other like it's some good healthy sport. And their idea of a wilderness is a condo at the resort. They only make rules that benefit the ones that lock you up. And there's not much more to say, except this whole place is damn corrupt. So I'm going back to my mountain, and there I'll spend my days. And I'll make love to my mountain girl, and I'll smoke my OG haze, and I'll live my old school ways.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
You've got that, and you convert that into this. We've got projects where we're trying to take natural materials. So this happens to be hemp fiber, industrial hemp fiber, and we're trying to churn these sorts of materials into solid materials that you can build all sorts of things with. So the advantage of doing this is you can grow these materials locally, manufacture them locally, and they cost a fraction of the amount as their synthetic counterparts. And in addition, you can mix synthetics in with natural materials and make new composite materials that have the best of both worlds.
So normally people are used to looking at a car door like this. This is what most people see. But on the back side, you have this natural fiber, and this has been in use for 20 years. And to have this 90-degree angle here for that strength, not a problem with fiberglass, but with natural fibers, you have to have a very strong natural fiber, and hemp is certainly, one of the top ones.
There's lots of appetite for taking raw plant materials and tearing it all apart and making liquid fuels out of it, but that's always going to be a high volume, kind of a low margin product that's destined to be burned. We're talking about making materials that are high value added products for high value added end uses. The earth has finite amount of resources, and using these kinds of materials allows more people to live high standards of living without the same cost to the environment and the same cost of resources to have that quality of life.
Being Seattle Hemp Fest and being the largest, most sophisticated cannabis policy reform event in the world, we try to make things up to you. We're going to do a countdown for the 420 here and all that stuff, but I'll tell you, we felt so bad about the fact that Tommy couldn't be here that we decided to do something about it.
There's been this rumor floating around, and I'm going to address it right now. I got to tell you people that I decided to quit smoking. And then I realized, hey, I'm not a quitter. Some people. First of all, I want to thank all the vendors. I want to thank the Seattle Hemp Fest for having me out here. I want to thank all these volunteers who work so hard for no money. A lot of volunteers around here. I want to thank the police for keeping the peace. I want to thank some people who don't get a lot of credit and really deserve it. I want to thank those people walking around here selling magic cookies, brownies. They don't get the credit they deserve. You guys are definitely the most energized pot smokers I've ever run across. I think it was appropriate to start here in Seattle because it's the home of the place where the young of heart took to the streets and flashed a giant neon sign saying, "We're not putting up with this shit anymore. WTO, go home. Find an island." It's because there's an amazing propaganda machine in this country. Don't you think? I mean, it's a propaganda machine that makes us actually believe that we live in a democracy when we know we don't live in a democracy. I mean, it's a propaganda machine that talks about us living in a free country when we know we're not living in a free country. You're free to do whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't go against what the government wants you to do. So how are we going to turn that around? I say things like this: the Seattle Hemp Fest are the way to turn this thing around. Every one of you people who showed up here today, you're making a statement, and I'm damn proud of you. And you know what I have to say? Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I think it will change. I think it'll change. Thank you all for coming out here today. I really warms my heart.
Say your name with one breath left. Dreams are that's my mom. I like to go fly in the sunshine. Those are the guys I feel the rhymes. I like to get high in the summertime. Trees are blazing, ease my mind. I like to go fly in the sunshine. You're with my hip-hop fans from Seatown to Flatlands. Get ready to launch.
Give me an H. Give me an E. Give me an M. Give me a P. Your turn. Outdo him. Give me an A. Give me an E. Give me an M. Give me a P. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the house band of Seattle Hemp Fest, the incredible Herbivores.
Out on the street, I can get on out of town, but this here town's my home. Ain't hurting nobody, so leave my ass alone. 'Cause it's a losing battle, now that the truth is out. Even the politicians have figured this thing out. You can go ahead and inhale press, might help you loosen your tie, and legalize the herb, and drop all the lies. 'Cause it's a losing battle. Wake up! Every struggle for freedom, they'll put us to the test. So it's time to exercise our rights and put on a hemp fest, and we'll educate the youth. Soon will rule the land, but it's just a matter of time, and it's time to take a stand. 'Cause it's a losing battle, one that money can't win. Been going on for years, just keeps right on going. Like a Cold War with the commies, prohibition and the like. You can throw us all in prison, but you cannot win the fight. 'Cause it's a losing battle.
Because we're only talking about good things for good people.
look at him. He's been through it. This is Vivian McPeak at Seattle Hemp Fest here at Myrtle Edwards Park. I'm with THC TV and Seattle Hemp Fest, and we just had Woody Harrelson speak. He's enjoying some munchies now and some refreshments. We've got the herbivores, our house band playing. We've got so many people out there, I don't know how to count them.
Hey, Mr. Politician, time to wake up.
Thank you, Casper, for another week. Thank you, viewers. We're going to go out on another great song by Mr. John Cornette. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.